Marivi Soliven Blanco is the author of 15 books. Her first novel, In the Service of Secrets, was awarded the grand prize for the novel in English at the 2011 Palanca Awards. It is set to be published by NAL Penguin Books in May 2013. Previously, Marivi's children's stories earned her two Carlos Palanca Memorial Silver Medals. Her short story for adults won the Philippines Free Press Grand Prize for Fiction. I'm still remembering her stories from Spooky Bowl, which she was here, was that last year when you came to watch it? Yeah, you should check that out too, that's a crazy book. Ms. Blanco lives with her husband, Professor John Blanco, and their daughter is in San Diego, California. Please welcome Marivi Soliven Blanco.
Just my luck, I have to do a follow-up after Joy Barrios. I'm going to have to do very well now. I just wanted to say that if my father had died, you know, later in time, I wouldn't have had to write this story, because now they have something called Iburo in the Philippines, which offers live streaming videos of wakes. Because so many Filipinos are abroad, not everybody can come home for a funeral, and this is how I managed to watch my late aunt's cremation, not inside the oven but outside. Everybody smiles for a camera, so it wasn't so very sad, even though we were. So this one is called Mourning Flight. I mourned my father's death on the plane back to Manila. He had died in his sleep, my mother said, after a tremendous snore that may have been a groan, a sigh, a mourning of his own for the two children far away that he would not see before he breathes his last. I learned of his death at a third remove, while checking messages on our answering machine and suddenly realizing that the undercurrent of panic and pity in the voices of my best friend and sister-in-law implied that, yes, my father had died. Hours later, having waited for the time difference between the West Coast and Manila to move into a decent hour for disturbing what must have been anyway a sleepless night, I called my mother and confirmed the news. Mama said he had let loose a deafening snore. She had failed to shake him awake. She called in Neneng, the cook, who lied and said she felt a faint pulse. Mama called her physician brother who came to examine Papa, and he offered truth. Your father is dead, she said. Come home now. Living abroad, you are forced to view life back home through a diffused lens. You hear news of the niece or nephew turning a year old, of your grandmother celebrating the 90th birthday, oblivious to the grand festivities erupting around her, of your parents slowly and inexorably aging, ailing, expiring. It is all a blur to you, seen through a pane of frosted glass, always a few hours or days after everything else has happened. Afterwards, you are left with the image of your family at home, gathered together in grief or joy, but somehow incomplete, for always there is that space in the photo between your mother and your younger brother where your face should have been. Come home soon, my brother entreated, days before my father had passed away. He looks now like Grandma did just before she died. Come now, he needs you here. My brother and I, prodigal children lost to America and American spouses, had assured the family that we would come home soon, and assumed my father would wait until we crossed the Pacific Ocean. But there are some things that simply will not wait for the homecomings of expatriate children. Death is one of them. We could not return in time for any of the nights of the wake. My high school classmates came despite my absence, cheering up my widowed mother, or at least confounding her with their memories of how she would chaperone our parties, dressed in her glamorous kaftan, sitting at the foot of the stairs and watching us through a scrim of cigarette smoke. Meanwhile, my husband and I sank into the cold opulence of Northwest's business class, a gift from my father, who insisted that his newest grandchild arrive in style on her first trip to Manila. I wept through 3 movies and 4 meals, across a half-dozen time zones and the continental divide. How else does one kill time on the flight home for a funeral? I thought I had squandered all my sorrow, or at least a visible part of it, and could expect to be suitably composed during the funeral mass. Heat and an unexpected summons to deliver the second reading provoked the most hideous facial contortions that failed to contain a fresh surge of tears, to contain my anguish at not having been home when Papa died. After the cremation, there was not much left to do but sort through his belongings. My father had not left a will, which was a curious oversight for someone who usually filed documents in triplicate. Instead, my mother gave each of us a large brown envelope with our names on it. Inside, I found a hodgepodge of artifacts he had kept from my childhood. My third grade report card, A for conduct, D- for handwriting, a few childish drawings, Valentine cards to my parents, copies of my college transcript, and some pictures. It was as though my father had been trying to capture and file away the essence of me, of each one of his children before we all grew up and left him behind. 2 of my siblings had stayed close to home, but Chito and I had absconded to America, there to live separate lives which intersected with my parents during their infrequent visits. Another odd thing my brothers unearthed in the depths of his closets, were behind old suitcases and such, were a box of guns, some loaded, Armalites and submachine guns and hand pistols, with a box of bullets for each. Perhaps Papa had feared a siege in his home, one similar to the attack his own family had fled from during World War II. The siege never came, of course, but we fled anyway, to other parts of the country and over the seas, escaping life as we knew it to forge our own destinies. So the guns gathered dust, and my father compiled folios on his lost children. We had known for years that he was ailing. Each photo we received showed him slightly more stooped. Each visit home revealed yet another complication. My brother bought him a few more years' life by donating a kidney after both of Papa's had failed. Sheer stubbornness and a probable heart attack killed him off in the end. After a serious fall outside the power plant movie theaters, he seems to have suffered a stroke. He could not move his left arm and his speech was severely slurred. Still, he insisted on leaving the hospital the very next day. And that was the last time the doctors had their way with him because he died soon after. Towards the end, Neneng, our loyal cook, told me Papa would drag around the house, raging, "Why me? Why me?" After years of helping dress, bathe, and medicate him, even my mother was exhausted. Why me? She must have wondered. I wonder only if things might have been different had I been living in Manila. Could I, the favored doctor, have bullied him into enduring the ministrations of a doctor? Could I have eased his depression or rage at his body's progressive decline? Could I have helped postpone his passing until we were all gathered round his bed? At this point, I will never know. And like all expatriates who were not present when that one life-changing event took place, I bear a burden of guilt. I was not home, not for the birth of my first niece or my second nephew, nor for the death of my father. Forgive me, Father, for I was not there. The guilt is an ache I bring away with me to the airport, along with boxes of woven placemats and husi fans, and various other souvenirs that prove that, American passport notwithstanding, I am still a full-blooded Filipina. It is a silent burden that weighs heavily on me more days than others, mainly when I remember one or another odd thing about my father. Sometimes my infant daughter will smile with a cheek full of food and turn into the spitting image of her grandfather. Or I may hear Sinatra crooning on the radio and recognize the song as one of those we put in my parents' 40th wedding anniversary video. Or I will remember how a lifetime ago, on some forgotten beach at sunset, my father had calmed my youthful uncertainty about the future. "Who knows," he said, "one day you might even write a book." Thank you.